Hi stamping friends, it's Terry Gaines. In this video, I'm going to share fun fold cards made with the Blackberry Beauty Specialty Designer Series paper. This paper is absolutely beautiful. You receive 12 by 12 prints. There are 2 each of 6 double-sided prints. The colors are so rich and beautiful, and there's a gold accent on one side of each of the papers. The colors are perfect for any of your fall crafting, paper crafting projects. And as I mentioned, it has a gold accent on one side, and I am going to be using gold paper to accent these fun fold cards. Some other product I'm going to be using is the Expressions in Ink accessory packet that is in the annual catalog, and I'll talk a little bit more about that packet in a moment. The stamp set I'm going to use is the Queen's Anne's Lace stamp set in the annual catalog. You can use any stamp set with your favorite sentiments, and I'm going to use the double oval punch. The fun fold card patterns I'm going to use are part of my World Card Making Day fun fold cards. You can look in the comment section if you found me via YouTube for a direct link to the blog post where you can download a PDF with 5 fun fold cards, the measurements and instructions, along with links to videos for assembly tips. I am going to be making these 5 fun fold cards, as I mentioned, and I'm going to be using the Blackberry Beauty specialty paper and the coordinating colors. And this is part of my Create with Terry card kit packet that is free with a $50 order when you use my host code. If your order is over $150 or over, do not use my host code. You will still receive a packet free. All the details are on my blog post, and the packet contains 1 each of those 6 different prints that are cut 4 by 6 and 12 of the coordinating cardstock colors. For the cards I'm just shared, there's 5 fun folds. With this packet, I'm actually going to create 8 cards and have 2 papers left over. So how I did this was I looked at my instructions and I looked at my designer series paper to decide how I wanted to match up my different cardstock colors. For example, for this piece, I wanted to match up the cinnamon cider. For this piece, I wanted to match up the early espresso. You can duplicate what I've done, but you could also use so many different combinations because these papers do go with multiple different colors. So before I started, I decided how I wanted to match my designer series paper to my cardstock and which of those then I wanted to create for the different fun folds. So as I mentioned, these are a duplicate from my World Card Making Day. So I'm going to show card number 1. This video that you can link to will give you all the video where I cut the papers and did the measurements. I'm going to show you a finished card and show you some tips on how I assembled them. So for example, the measurements are here. And what I want to show on card number 1 is how I use the accessory pack to add this accent here. So this accessory pack, you get 5 of these sheets. Each sheet has 10 different elements on it, plus some bonus pieces that you could reuse. So what I'm going to do is use 2 of these elements for this card here. Now these elements, several of them, and I probably should have prepped this a little bit more before I started recording the video. My videos are unedited. I do not go in and speed things up or make any modifications, but you are welcome to fast forward through a section that might take longer. For example, separating these little pieces. So you get 5 of these sheets. Each of the sheets has 10 elements on there. So, and then along with that, you get 100 adhesive sequins. So you get a great value for this packet. So these details here I wanted to put on this card, but it also meant that you have to use a fine tip glue pen to adhere those. But what I did was I took the dual oval punch, punched the gold foil, and then also did my stamping and punched that, adhered that together. How I assembled these pieces, and let me grab the other two pieces. These are already cut out for you. They are absolutely beautiful, a great way to accent any of your cards with a beautiful gold foil. So what I did is I took my dimensionals, and for this one I just placed it behind here. That's where I wanted it to go. So I took dimensionals and I used a dimensional to adhere that to the back of the oval. I wanted to add this one. I got a little bit careful here, they're fragile. I want this one on this side, so I placed it here, turned it over, added a dimensional to adhere it. Then I covered the back of this piece with dimensionals. My thought is if I put lots of dimensionals across here, it's going to secure this in place, but it also is going to secure these fine pieces in place, and I do not have to add any additional adhesive. Keep in mind that there's going to be portions of it that are not adhered, but it is not going to come off, and it will, in my opinion, it will be totally fine. So what I did is I set those down, and then I placed this right on top of it, and those dimensionals now have adhered all of those fine details together, and you get some sequins in here, and I added some sequins. So that's how I did this card. On the back of the card is where you sign your card. So that's Fun Fold card number 1. Fun Fold card number 2, I utilized the same concept for this card, and I only used one of these two hexagon ones because with this packet, with your designer series paper, you can cut your paper down to size and create 2 of these Fun Fold cards. So this piece is cut by 2, so you're going to get 2. You use 1 piece of cardstock for the card base and for the flap, and then I used a 1/4 sheet of the Early Espresso. And the tip on this one is before I layered this piece onto here, and as I mentioned, all the dimensions are provided in the PDF and the other blog post, I placed this Early Espresso in my dual punch, but I was cautious that I didn't go too far down here. Punch this out. This became my accent piece for this piece right here. And then I can layer this and then layer it here, and nobody's going to notice that there is a piece cut out of that element. This piece that's cut off the cardstock becomes your little card for the fold, and this would be the same concept as I just showed you. I would place that down, I would assemble these pieces and put the elements behind it, several dimensionals, and place that down to get this look. As you can tell, these foil leaves are texturized. I placed it in the Tasteful Textile folder and texturized those before I assembled those. So what I can get with my packet and my supplies are 2 cards that are pretty identical, other than these elements are slightly different. So look in the blog post for a completed video for that card number, that would be card number 2. I might be out of order here, but I believe this is card number 3. This card actually is 1 piece of designer series paper that is cut in half. The card itself base is a postcard, and as I mentioned, the information will give you all the measurements. That designer series paper is cut in half, and it's a different piece that I have shown here. But cut in half, placed here. Another piece of cardstock is cut. I did texturize this with the textile folder. You'll have dimensions to cut that paper. And what I did for the card here, these 2 are going to be identical. I used gold foil behind, this is the back of the gold foil. But before I adhered my basic white, I took the dual oval punch. I punched that section out of that. I can adhere this piece to here, and just be sure that that's where you adhere this element to the bottom. The video is going to give you assembly tips on assembling the cards, and here I've added some of those sequins. So these two cards are going to be identical upon assembling. So that would be card number 3. I believe this is card number 4, and all the instructions will be in the World Card Making Day video for card number 4, and the Queen Anne's lace stamps that go so well with that paper. And card number 5 would be, oh, I showed you that one already. Card number 5, I've made 2 different cards and using the different designer series paper. This tab here is the extra piece cut from here. I used the Tasteful Textile to texturize only about 1 inch of this piece of basic white. And the reason I do that is that's kind of 2 purposes. It's a decorative purpose for the card, but also when you sign the card, you don't want to go beyond that area, because if you did, it would be visible from the outside when the card is closed. And this, as I mentioned, is from this piece. And what I did was I texturized the gold foil after I punched it out and have my element. I left this band the same length that it is per the instructions. For this one, I actually cut it smaller, so it stopped here. But I also cut out 2 oval punches in this layer. I cut 1 oval punch in half and have it overlapped here, spread apart there to give you some extra layering on this side. And that second oval with some adhesive on the back can go right over here to cover up that area. So that is card number 5. I hope you found this video helpful in creating these different fun fold cards. As I mentioned, you can go to the blog post and I will have the finished cards so you can see how all of these have finished for all 5 cards. As I mentioned, with the 5 card designs, I was able to make 8 cards, plus I have 2 pieces of my 8.5 by 5.5 cardstock left over. And I hope you enjoyed these fun fold cards. Happy creating!